I want to say thank you very much to all of the Patreons for responding to the "What should I do now with the Range Rover" video. And what I'm going to do now is just reply to a lot of you. And I think it's a little easier for me to do this face to face than just simply type it. I have replied to a lot of them, but and I don't know how long this video is going to be. Might be a bit lengthy, so I'll put it out as a podcast as well, so you can listen to it while driving in your car. But I want to basically. I'm really grateful for your input. Established in 1996, 4X Overland is the world's first global overland expedition channel. Join us as we explore the world by four-wheel drive. I think the overall feeling has been go the Africa route. But many, like me, love the Range Rover and loved the Range Rover on the Canning because it was the hero of the show. One must remember that I made it the hero of the show. I wanted it to be the hero of the show, but imagine if it had actually failed, broken down on day 4. It wouldn't have been the hero of the show. It would have been the thing that let us down. So the story was really, well, I had my doubts whether it would survive the trip. And it did so well, and of course the interaction between Rob, who's driving it, and Heine's highlights broke down more than that, which was fantastic, and it made a good story. We didn't make anything up, it was real. It was real. But now, comment, I agree that the best decision is to sell the Range Rover for an African Overlander. Let's get this right out of the way, right up front. It's one or the other. It's not both. And if I decide to keep the Range Rover and do more with the Range Rover, it means no vehicle in Africa. All right. Some people have mentioned the idea that in Ineos, let's put it this way. Car makers don't give away cars unless you're a soccer star. All right. So getting a giveaway from Ineos, it's not going to happen. Right? I am under no illusions. What they might do, and in fact I've actually sent through a proposal to them, is allow me to purchase one at a significantly reduced price because of what I can then give them. Help develop products for the vehicle. They have, at the moment, that's their one biggest challenge, is that the Ineos arrives and there are no accessories, or very few accessories for it. And so those accessories have to be made by individuals, mostly small companies. And that takes time. So the Ineos arrives, people start buying it, and there's no long-range fuel tank. It needs a long-range fuel tank. Who's going to get one of those advanced vehicles to be able to develop the tank? So I kind of put through an offer to them and saying, you know, we would be able to assist with that. Not too many specifics, but enough for them to think, that might be worth doing. I do not have the finances to go and spend $100,000 on a Grenadier. It's not going to happen. And I do really like the idea of doing something fresh. And for the channel, for everybody, I think, doing something with a Grenadier would be brilliant. Who's going to pay for it? Well, I thought that they might pay for part of it. I haven't heard back from them. I sent them the proposal, good 2 months ago. Stu, thank you for you've been to Africa, obviously, because you talk about I never knew what people meant when they say Africa won't let you rest. It's true, just a mesmerizing place. It is something about Africa, and I think once you've been there, I think also something about the Australian outback, you know, the really remote outback. There's something about it that just draws you back. It's an unquenchable thirst. Michael John Turner, personally I'd keep it and do a full rebuild. So I'm assuming, Michael, that you're a Range Rover file. You just love Land Rovers, love Range Rovers, so I completely understand. But I look at that and think to myself, what is my passion? It's not actually building cars. It's touring remote, actually. And the balance that I have to play with. An audience that loves the build and loves to learn about building and applying the practicalities of living out of a vehicle in the bush, that whole overlanding thing, actually are a lot more popular on YouTube than trips. Now, typical. The first video of the troop carrier, I think I called it the masterclass. There will probably be 4 videos in that series, and I go in depth into the troop carrier. Within 2 weeks, 70,000+ views. Canning stock, best work I've done in a decade, I think. 30,000 in the same, about half. Which means that there are more people interested in the builds than there are in the trips. And there's a very good reason for that. And that is YouTube. YouTube is the perfect place for putting up stuff about how to do things and ideas to do things. It's not a good place for telling stories and doing a series where you've got episodes 1 to 13 and you've actually got to watch all of them and you release them one after the other. YouTube doesn't like that and doesn't treat a series like that well. The first video, I'll get 30, 40, 50,000 views in the first 2 weeks. Episode 2, 2/3 of that. Episode 3, half of that. It's because YouTube stops sharing with new people series. They'll do the first one, they'll share it with lots of people, second one, fewer people, third one, fewer, until you get the core people, and with canning stock, about 20,000. And those people know me. You guys know me. So it's a balancing act. I have got to now create content, because that's my living, and I have to combine it with building and touring. I have to do both. All right. And the Range Rover says, well, you'd get not that much. The loyal followers will do it, will watch it, but important to the business to grow, and that's to find new people. And actually, restoring a Range Rover, go onto the internet now and go and find Range Rover restoration videos. They're everywhere. There are hundreds of them. So some of them are really good, better than I could do, because I'm not an expert in restoring cars. I'd have to farm quite a lot of the stuff out because I can't do it myself. So, and that's obviously costly. At the end of the day, if I did that, took the Range Rover and basically rebuilt it to this beautiful thing, which is now far too good to go overland in, and I would be worth a lot more money, and I'd actually make more money out of it, because really well restored Range Rovers, and we've already finished the mechanical part. We've restored it mechanically. We've done it. It's finished mechanically. Runs beautifully. But that's in the big picture. I might get more selling the car, but I won't get more income creating the content. And at the end of the day, actually, I'll make more money making content than I will selling the vehicle. So again, it's a decision I have to make. The Lander, like Liam Adams, obviously you love Land Rovers. He'd love to see me in a Defender Puma. Sticking with the Land Rover theme, but still capable vehicle. Sticking with the Land Rover theme. I like the idea of sticking with the Land Rover theme. But what would I do? I'd have to build a Defender. Old one, obviously. And so I'd have to find one. They're good old Defenders. They're expensive. They cost the same as a new troop carrier. Yeah, here you go. Same Liam. Engineering companies in the UK now producing Defender parts that are immensely reliable for the driveline, and they're correcting all of those issues in the Defender that make it unreliable. And so you can actually, it's true, you can make a Defender reliable. You can. If I stay with the Toyota theme, it's a 70 series. What else is there? The 200 series or 300 series, prices have gone very, very high now, because the 200 series in some respects is nicer than the 300 series. in some ways worse, some ways nicer. But again, very expensive, and it would be, the building of it would be a station wagon. So building a station wagon comprises this. You put a water tank behind the seats, you put a drawer system to access, you put some gull wings on the back to ease of access, you put a rooftop tent on the top, and you put a nice electrical system in that'll allow me to build a shower, build a nice split charge system. Don't think I'll go induction cooking with this vehicle. I like induction cooking, but actually there is a video coming on that. I've kind of come to my conclusion with, and there are pros and cons, like everything. And there I've built the car. So now, ute, pickup. Quite a few people have mentioned, build a pickup, big or bad. Don't build another troopy, don't build another troopy. And I understand that sympathy because you've seen the troopy. And those of you who are interested in my take on doing different vehicles, I completely understand why, if I do another troopy, yawn. I promise you the trips will not be yawn. They won't be yawn. And here's the thing again. If I build a vehicle that is very comfortable, and when I'm saying comfortable, I'm talking about comfort when camping. And what I mean by that, easy to pack up, easy to put out, convenient, good access, etc., etc. And easy, nice to live with, will mean I will spend more time in the wilderness filming the travel shows than if I had a vehicle that was actually, well, for want of a better word, uncomfortable. One of you mentioned the series I did in the Isuzu in Zambia with my daughter Kate. That was proof to me that the vehicle doesn't really matter. That was an amazing adventure. I want to go back to Zambia. I've got 2 favorite places in Zambia and I want to go back to them. That wasn't about the vehicle. We had a stock vehicle, stock suspension, stock everything. I upgraded the tires. All I did. I ran a cable from the front to the back to run a fridge. Not ideal, but it kind of worked. We had a very rudimentary, the Easy On, that quite nice. I don't like that type of, was the Easy On, you know, the tent that does this, you know. I don't like that type of tent, only because they're a pain to pack away. They're such a pain to pack away. You have to be a contortionist to get dressed inside it to start with. Well, that's the same with any rooftop tent. But packing it away and putting the cover on. So in the morning, you have a lovely morning, and by the time you've packed the tent away, you're sweating like a pig because of all of the PT of just putting the tent away. So that kind of tent for me is, no, forget it, not interested. I'd rather a ground tent than one of those rooftop tents. I don't mind a ground tent in Africa, doesn't bother me in the slightest. If I do a station wagon, it's that with a choice of rooftop tents, and that's about it. Nothing special. Ute. So here's what I feel about utes. A ute with either the solid tray, the tray back or the solid back. I think you call it a bin back. I'm not sure what its actually proper terminology for it is, but basically the enclosed load bay with the drop-down tailgate. They all have one thing in common, and that is that drop-down tailgate sucks in dust, and it's almost impossible to solve unless it's replaced with a broad opening, which is part of the canopy. So, ute, canopy on top. Single cab or double cab? Double cab, weight issues. 79 Land Cruisers are not great when you put a lot of weight on the back of them. That's why I did that extended Land Cruiser. 300mm extension, and it made a big difference. That chassis was actually great. What let that project down, the Dream Tourer, was the camper. Actually, it was a glorified canopy. It was like a canopy with a built-in tent. It wasn't a camper. It was, so it didn't tick a lot of boxes. It was okay. But that weight on the back of that vehicle actually handled it very well because of the chassis extension. I'm not doing a chassis extension if I build a vehicle in Africa. It'll be a straight out of the box because I've got a budget constraint. I don't have sponsors like Dream Tourer Multidrive said, we would love you to build this and we'll pay for it. It'll be a donation, but we want the publicity. Fantastic, because that'll, I think, solve the problem. And they were very happy with that project. So in South Africa, I'm trying to try and keep it simple. If I go ute, it's a canopy. Same thing. Open the canopy, do the electrical system. You've seen it before. The Egon water hub for a shower. I'm about to do another video on that because we've now got that product just right. And so, what's new about it? Really, I would take a canopy and put a solid door on the back for the dust, to solve the dust problem. Put drawers out the back. Honestly, nothing special. So what else could I do? I could get a camper, but because of the weight issue and the weight carrying ability of the 70 series, use a single cab. Now this is worth thinking about. A single cab, but with a camper. What camper? I'm not making the same mistake again as I did with the Tommy camper. It has to be a proper, genuine, live in, live out of camper. You know why the Troop Carrier is so much better than the Dream Tourer? Because I can get into it and veg out, and I've got a little spot, and I can open all the doors and everything and have lovely airflow, and I can get out of, if it's raining or whatever, and I can chill out in a very comfortable place inside. I want to watch a video on something on a laptop, do a little bit of work, listen to an audio book, and if the wind is nasty, if the weather's nasty, and I don't want to sit outside, I can sit inside. That's the definition of a camper to me. A walk-through canopy is not a camper. It's just a walk-through canopy, which is the Tommy camper. So is there a camper that will actually allow me to do that? I don't believe there is. I honestly don't believe there is. The one that I really, really liked, which is probably going to be, in fact, I can tell you now it'll be too wide, is the four-wheel pop-up camper, which is a proper compact camper built for a pickup, and put it on a Land Cruiser single cab. The one challenge with a single cab, which I think I can get around, I think I can get around, and that is because I'm in and out of the vehicle constantly filming. It's my job, it's what I do. Stop, oh, it's into the out, that wasn't very good. Next one, that was something I wasn't very, now that was magic. When I see something, I just film it. See something that I think that will work, and I just get out and film it. Every now and again, wasn't worth it. Most of the time, makes a nice story. So I'm in and out all the time. And when I climb out, I'm grabbing a camera. With the Troop Carrier now, I've got behind me, up here, I can grab my camera, if I'm traveling on my own, on the seat. Okay? And I can grab my camera, and if I need a tripod, then I've got to go into the back. Okay, so that's, if I had a four-door, I could get the tripod out the back. I just open the back door and out everything comes. Even better than a Troop Carrier. It's a compromise. Troop Carrier over double cab. But it's a well thought out compromise. We've designed the inside, pick up my camera, boom, I'm ready to go filming. If I need to change a lens, got to open the back, pull out the drawer, easy access, very quick. Tripod's right there, lens is right there, really quick. It's got to be quick. And being quick is vital because so often the sun is about to set and that light through the trees is just beautiful. Bang, just go, and I bang, shoot, and I shoot. No time, often just put the camera on the bonnet and just focus and just get the shot. So that's important. With a single cab, that's more difficult because if I'm traveling on my own, not a problem at all on my own, or less of a problem. With a double cab, even less of a problem. And with the Troopy, we can work around it. So, again, the Troopy actually scores the highest points. But I know a lot of you are saying, oh, I don't want another Troopy, I don't want another Troopy, I don't want another Troopy. And I'm thinking to myself, this is the big question, does the actual vehicle itself really matter? If I build, whatever I build, people are going to be interested in it. Okay? To grow the channel, I should build something exotic. Ineos Grenadier would be top of the list, no question. A Suzuki Jimny. I don't know if you can get them in South Africa. Impractical. Doesn't have the range. What a lovely project that might be. But it's not gonna tick enough boxes. Do I want a solid axle? Well, as you know, I like solid axles. Do I have to have one? No, I don't have to have a solid axle. But hang on a minute. I don't have to have a solid axle. So I could go Hilux. I'd go 70 series before I went Hilux. I would. I just would, because it's available. And what is the Hilux going to give me over a 70 series? A little bit better fuel economy, a bit more comfort on the open road. That's where it ends. That's where it ends. There's also another thing to think about, and that is the way a vehicle makes you feel. And to me, that's quite important. Range Rover made me feel great because it was reliving a little bit of my past, and that was fun. But it's not serious. The Troopy makes me feel. In fact, I think any 70 series will make me feel. Troopy more than most. Again, 2015 in the Isuzu with that very ordinary vehicle with very, very basic equipment in it, and we did an incredible trip, and we had such a great time. Kate and I, such a lovely time, just my daughter and I, and she was an absolute trooper, I must tell you. How old was she then? She was a young lass, and she would we found some really, really grotty places, and she didn't moan, she didn't complain. Oh, well, it is what it is. And sometimes I'd give her a camera on the ponts crossing the rivers in Luang, up near Lua, towards Lua Plains, and she just took it in stride, and she could have felt intimidated. She had a job to do. Out the camera came, and she did a great job. It was about the trip. I never once sat in the campsite. I remember the one beautiful campsite on the Luangwa River. The next day we arrived at Croc Valley, I think it was. And in the morning we got up, and these elephants just started moving through the river, and this puku, antelope, came close, and a warthog started sniffing and actually feeding around our camps. And the birds and the trees and this young giraffe, I remember this really young giraffe. Not once did I look around at the vehicle and went, some of you will know that feeling. That only happens with a small select number of vehicles. And I want it to happen again. Yes, you're saying it's more about the trip than the vehicle. I am saying that. How about the car as well? How about the vehicle as well? Brian Cox. Past vehicles including Toyota, Mercedes, Range Rover were very interesting in something different. Something available that is available in Europe or North America. Now, I really sympathize. I really sympathize. But what is available in Europe that would work for me in this genre? A Pinzgauer? Yeah, that'd be interesting. But they're not available in Europe. They're second-hand. Hen's teeth in South Africa, very, very rare. Would it be interesting? That idea is quite appealing, because it is a very, very different vehicle and a totally different platform. And I think something like that is more appealing than just another vehicle. Certainly more appealing than a Toyota Fortuner. I think they're available, or similar, are available in Europe. They might call it a different name. or the D-Max station wagon, or the Land Cruiser 200. Are they available in Europe, the 200 Land Cruisers? Or what? The only other one I can think of that is available in Europe is the Grenadier. We've talked about that. So something like a Pinska. I kind of like the idea. I do actually like the idea, but here's the challenge with that. For me to be able to know that my vehicle will be trustworthy, because remember, I'm driving in Africa, a breakdown or vehicle failure with such an exotic machine as a Pinska could be a bit risky. Nice, good subject, a bit risky. I'm only going to do this once. I want a vehicle that I can build. I'm going to build it once. It's going to stay in Africa, and I'm going to get on a plane. They've just got direct flights, just announced now, direct Perth, Johannesburg. It's 11 hours or so, so it's not a bone breaker of a flight. And I'm in Africa. I need to know that my car is good. No, because remember, when I'm not there, I might organise it to be serviced or whatever, and Paul will help me with that. But will he be able to help with something exotic like a Pinska? See, I've got to look at the practicalities, the real down-to-earth practicalities of actually doing it. Not just talking about it and telling stories about it and bringing out a camera and pointing at it. I've actually got to do it. You know, we're not Top Gear, or where we've got lots of backup, where we go and do an adventure and then go to a nice hotel and fly home after the film is finished. We have to do everything. We're actually doing it. So I probably didn't need to say that to you. You know that. That goes without saying. Scott, my vote is for Africa. Maybe you can get the 105 back. The 105 was actually purchased by an Australian couple who have been using it, I understand. And they don't want to sell it. That was good. That build was of all the series that I've done. Series, part 1, part 2, part 3, etc., one a week for a period of time. The most popular by quite a long way was that Land Cruiser restoration and rebuild that we did in Cape Town. Was very, very popular, did very, very well. And Explore Track New Zealand. Okay, he's not particularly interested in Land Rover content. I mentioned the rental series we did with Paul Marsh with the rentals, Safari Drive rentals, which was fantastic. We went through the Kalahari and to the Kookaveld, and he's watched it 3 or 4 times. And that's his favourite series. It wasn't about a car. It wasn't about a car. It was about an amazing place. The car was incidental. We did bits and pieces on the car because we had been loaned the car by Safari Drive, so we were bound to do something on the rental stuff because that was the deal we had with them. You take the vehicle for 3 weeks and we'll get some nice publicity. That's how it works. But it's a rental car. I want my own. Rob Irwin just wants me to build an Africa vehicle so he can live vicariously through you because he can't get over there. I'm hoping that's a lot of you feel that way. Grant Kerr, call me boring, but I love the 70 series platforms. See, everybody loves the 70 series platforms because they just plain work. I love this expression. It just plain works. So I think about the Troopy. It just plain works. And yeah, you've got to do a bit of work to get it right. Why not do both? Brian Hocking, why not do both? Money, my friend. It's where it is. It just is. It just is. Okay, it's one or the other. I have to just bring it down to that very, very basic. Chris Herrick, your content will be great regardless of the direction you go. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Thank you for your very, very kind words. Somebody suggested a Geländewagen, 290 GD Geländewagen. You know, it's a bit of an exotic, a bit like the Pinska. I love that. That's a car where you sit back and you go, oh. 290 GD G-Wagon. Not all G-Wagons. Not all G-Wagons, okay? That one. Marvellous. And I said that it would be easier to find a Pelicans wearing sunglasses than to find a 290 GD, let alone one with low mileage. Luke mentioned he'd love to see me travelling in Africa again. Maybe you could do a Nissan Patrol in Africa, or does it have the same image in Africa? No, it doesn't. Does not have the same image in Africa. Nissan Patrol would be worth thinking about. Okay, and I know a little bit about the good ones, the not so good ones, what they share in common that is good, not a lot of things they all share that is bad, but it's a station wagon. What's the difference between doing that and doing a Land Cruiser station wagon, or the other station wagons that I mentioned? There's no difference. How would you just be driving a different car with a different badge on the steering wheel? And you as the viewer, if you're a Nissan, you like Nissans, and I'm driving a Nissan, it'll make you feel good, but what about everybody else who don't drive a Nissans? Then I don't want to make the travelling about the car. I'll make the build about the car, but I won't make the travelling about the car. Car is irrelevant. But I do understand that. So really it's more about what kind of car I build than what brand of car I build. Several of you have mentioned, Hamish mentioned Paul Marsh. Paul, so I spoke to Paul about the idea, and it was just before. He's in Kathmandu, I think at the moment. He's crossing India and parts of the Himalaya on a vintage car rally. It's what he does, as well as this four-wheel drive thing. And he said, I'm there. I want to be involved. So he was very bullish about it, like he is with all of my projects. But I think he's a big asset to the channel, and people would really like him to be involved. And we're going to find a little more of his perspective. Now, with the 105 build in 2019, we saw his perspective on refurbishing the machinery, mechanical parts of a vehicle. That was what we got his insight. This time, though, I'm not going to buy such an old vehicle. I'm going to buy a vehicle that will need some refurbishment here and there. I'm going to spend more, take less of a chance. So I'm not going to buy such a lemon as I did in 2019. However, this time we're going to be speaking, talking and sharing far more about making it a good overlander in terms of carrying water and fuel and shower systems and electrical systems and comfort and safety and security. Security is a big thing in Africa. And Paul and I don't agree on everything. We don't argue about it, but we don't agree on everything. And I want you to see his point of view. He's really experienced, so his point of view has huge value, even if I don't agree with it. See, so many parts of building Overlanders, there's no right or wrong way of doing it. There are some wrong ways, yes there are. There are many wrong ways, yes there are. But there's not necessarily any right ways of doing it, because it's individual, and some things work really well for some people and not so well for other people. But I want to share that with you. So whatever we do in Africa, it will be with Paul. All right. Steve only suggested we use the Range Rover in Africa, and that's because he's building a two-door Range Rover. Yes, my commiserations, but he's building it as an Overlander. It's too old for a reliable Overlander, particularly in Africa. Nice idea, but actually doing it? I mean, yeah, look, turning around and going, oh, she's beautiful. Yeah, that happens in spades with two-door Range Rovers, for me anyway. But would I be able to rely on it? And in some ways, yes, because I know the vehicle intimately and could keep it going mechanically, say far better than I could with the troop carrier. I know how diesels work, but I'm not an experienced diesel mechanic by any stretch. But I could fix most problems that occur, apart from catastrophic ones, with a Range Rover, not so with a troop carrier. And therefore, if I'm not going Range Rover, then I need reliability. I need simplicity and reliability, because I know my limitations when it comes to fixing a car. And if they're complicated problems, then I get to my limit, and then the vehicle becomes impractical, because I need to, as I've said before, know that it's going to work. Lawrence Off-Road Pinch Scar Specialist. I would keep the Range Rover as an old-timer and a collector's car, but don't restore it too much. It would lose its character. Interesting. Content in Africa sounds good, but please not another troopy. That might be boring. Take a Grenadier and build an Overlander and make a Content in Africa. So another troop carrier would be boring in terms of the vehicle build. Not necessarily. Yes, I understand where you're coming from, because I've done two. I'm going to do a third one, but I'm going to do a Paul Marsh one. And what he puts into it will be able to be translated into all other kinds. I think that's of more value. Bringing Paul on board is of more value than buying a vehicle, different type of vehicle, where he's not involved. Now, Julian mentioned that it's hard to deny that Toyota makes a pretty good vehicle, lends itself well to overlanding. Reliability, yes. Toyotas are pretty much indestructible. No, they're not. That's the Toyota fans pumping up Toyotas. They're good, solid, well-made cars, and generally speaking, they are reliable. They brake. If you push them, they will brake. And then they're not reliable anymore. So, yes, more reliable than most, not unbreakable. The idea of moving to another Toyota doesn't really excite. Here comes another video about a Land Cruiser crossing the Kalahari. It's not about the Land Cruiser crossing the Kalahari. It's about Andrew crossing the Kalahari. I really feel quite strongly about that. And the trouble is that the Land Rover guys would say, it's a Land Rover crossing the Kalahari. Was Canning about a Range Rover? It was a bit, wasn't it? It was about the car beating the odds, and with the characters around it. Yeah. The Range Rover kind of took centre stage. I don't want any vehicle to take centre stage. It takes centre stage when you're building it, but when you're doing the trip, I don't think it should take centre stage. I think the place, the textures, the colours, the sounds of the place should take centre stage, and then the vehicle is just the tool to get there. So, Julian continues, I suppose he isn't doing customer builds anymore. Doing a build in Africa would be one way of getting his fix. That's not altogether accurate. My passion, as I've mentioned before, is not actually building vehicles, it's remote travel. But I've learned through doing that to build vehicles quite well, and I'm not doing builds anymore, but I've got a new project starting now, which is going to replace the autograph overland builds. And of course I have my consultancy service, which I'm actually helping two people right now, one in the United Arab Emirates and another one in the United States, building troop carriers, and I'm doing it on a consultancy basis. So I'm still getting my fix, if you want to call it that. I am involved in other people, but what I love to see there is people's, their vehicles just being created, and then they go on these amazing trips. And that on autograph, that didn't really happen that much, because dealing face to face with people I found difficult, particularly because one of them didn't pay me a cent, and I built him a whole vehicle. We'll not worry about that too much. Point is that the fix I was talking about is not building a vehicle. As I mentioned, that's very important to my content, but it's not my passion. It's one of my passions, but my real passion is remote travel. So it's not about the vehicle, it's about the travel for me. And this is from Ulrich. There's no need to restore the Range Rover to new condition, keep its character. I do get that. I do, which is another thing. To some people, if I restored the Range Rover, I'd be ruining it. Excuse me, I just had to get myself a drink. Talking this much is making me thirsty. This is called a Bundaberg. It's an Australian brand of fruit juices. They're very, very nice. Camera Nomadic. Mr. Camera, I want to thank you firstly for putting up, you posted a lot of comments, all of them quite funny, on the Canning Stock Route YouTube channel. And you said this week, and you did it at top gear, this week, Andrew, Rob, John, etc. Thank you for doing that. I smiled at every single one of them. And he meant you are a storyteller first and foremost, and you will give it the best opportunity. And so what will give you the best opportunity to do that? And he's asking that question, Africa. He's right. As you said, content for 10 years. People who are hung up on vehicle choices are focused on the wrong thing. Now, I don't know if they are. Again, there's no right or wrong. We all have our passions. We're all quite different. But you're saying the vehicle is not the story. It's the tool of telling the story. Yeah, I feel exactly the same way. And I might be contradicting myself because I do get excited about cars. I do get excited about... Now, I see a troopy. I'm at the show, at the Perth 4-wheel drive show. And as we drove in, my troopy's parked there. And as we drove in, there was a troop carrier there, out of the box showroom troop carrier. You could see it hadn't been sold yet. Gave me a buzz. Sandy type troopy, just playing. I do get excited about cars. I do. But when I'm on a trip, it's about the place. Include Paul Marsh. Your combined experience in adventure travel and overland education makes for excellent storytelling and can be used to promote the Overland Workshop. Absolutely. And that's also in part important. It's also a thought, you know. And besides, traveling with Paul is enormous fun. Just fun, you know. We really do enjoy. And you also mentioned New Zealand. I did a series in New Zealand, and New Zealand's quite close, and we are kind of looking at New Zealand as a place to do another trip. We used Trekker. They've got some quite nice cars that they rent out. Adam Haidman said, onward and upward. Love the Range Rover and goodbye. Trip would be amazing, but a build of a new vehicle in South Africa would generate great content for your channel for all of us to watch. Yes, I agree. Jason Noble mentioned that he built a vehicle, 79 series themselves, getting inspiration from my shows. He's also asking a question, what is the story? Generically, it is yourself and sometimes Gwyn in remote areas, setting up camp, moving to the next day, and we get to see the landscape, scenery, incidents that happen along the way. For me, it is your quirky, passionate presentation style and your knowledge of overlanding and that he values. Yeah, it's not about, you know, keep the Range Rover if you are that emotionally attached to it. I'm not. I'm more emotionally attached to the idea of the Range Rover than I am in the actual vehicle itself. I would not have thought it is worth that much. Jason, go and have a look and see what good quality two-door suffix A, B, C, D Range Rovers fetch. Good ones over $100,000. So a lot of money. A lot of money. So the moment Range Rovers are four-door, the price is 1/4 or less than two-door. Two-door Range Rovers are premium, and for good ones, as I said, silly money. So I'll get enough. I should be able to get as I say, the restoration of the mechanics is done, which increases its value. And with it, I've got a lot of spare parts, which I will be contributing to the whoever purchases it. Rito mentions building a capable tour in remote Africa. Touring would be great to see. Hard to beat a troopy. It's hard to beat a troopy. Troop carriers in South Africa are not available with V8s. They were only imported with the 1HZ, that's 4.2, non-turbocharged donkey engine. Very reliable. Oh, reliable, like unbreakable. Couldn't pull a skin off a rice pudding. More Africa build, more Africa build, Africa build, Africa build, got to be Africa build. I really like the Range Rover, but it would be tough for me to let it go. Yeah, maybe not as tough as you think. I don't have a close attachment to it. This is John Edward Maltby. If that's the only two choices offered, then Africa definitely. But suggest that you have a good look in your mirror. You're going to be 65 before you have your first trip ready, and you have alluded to the fact that you're not getting younger each year as it gets harder. Realistically, how much more overseas trip do you have in you? Good luck and heavy travel. So I'm going to conclude with this, which is a very, very good point. I am 63, and I have at most 10 years, probably at this pace, realistically. So what do I want to do with those 10 years? I want to go back to Africa. And that, to me, is the single biggest draw card, is that I'm thinking now, well, if I've got limited time to do this, where would I really like to, and where would it be, I never managed to get to do that. I don't want to say that too much. I can't go everywhere I want to go, but most of those places I really want to do that. I really want to go there. Are in Africa. Those places are, for example, northern Malawi, Kenya, Tanzania. I want to go and find the shoebill in northern Zambia. Never seen a shoebill. Google shoebill. Extraordinary birds. I have this longing to go and do them, and I know that my time is limited. So, my choice of vehicle, now you know my choice of where I want to go. My choice of vehicle, I will almost definitely build a 70 series Land Cruiser, because at the end of the day it's the most practical, and it's the one that I can rely on the most and ticks the most boxes. I'm sorry for those of you who think that's boring. It can't be about the vehicle. It's got to be about the tool. Building a tool that's effective. And doing it with Paul Marsh will bring in a fresh look. I have 3 choices. The double cab, but then I'm going to put a camper on the back of it. I don't think it's going to tick enough boxes. Which means single cab if I can find a camper that will work and be a proper camper on a single cab. Will I trade the ease of getting cameras? Maybe. I will certainly look at it. I'm not discounting a single cab yet. I have driven single cabs before, and they have been a bit frustrating in that regard. Is there a way around it? Maybe. Maybe. Center console system, I don't know, maybe. Troop carrier, it's the most practical, but it's only available with a donkey engine. Could I get how about this? A troop carrier, but do an engine transplant. The 2 engines I have in mind, the 1HDT, which is the 18Z, which is 4.2, normally aspirated motor, but with the turbocharger by Toyota. Toyota's turbocharger, and the engine is actually not the same. It looks identical. In the engine bay it looks identical, but it's not the same. It has a different head and it has a different pistons. And it has turbocharger built by it. So in other words, the engine is designed for a turbocharger. So the reliability issues, and that engine, fabulous. It bolts in. It's got a ordinary manually operated diesel pump. It is like a 1HZ in terms of reliability, but with nice amount of power. Fantastic. Problem: very difficult to find them. And if we did find one, we would have to do a full engine rebuild. That's now becoming quite expensive, but it's definitely feasible. The 1F, I sometimes get this wrong, the 1FT, sometimes get it. It's the 4.2 multi-valve straight 6 turbocharged diesel, as found in the 80 series VX, the late 80 series VX, the 100 series in different countries, the model designations are different, but it was the turbo diesel in the 100 series had that engine in it. And they even built a small number of troop carriers with that engine in it. And I've always claimed, even today, that engine is the best engine ever to have been put into a troop carrier. And that conversion is possible if I can find somebody in Australia who will supply the wiring loom, the wiring harness to enable, because it's got some electronic components. So a simple bolt on, bolt in, it's not. But it's also not too complicated and can be done. So I'm going to go now looking for, if you know anybody, please respond in the comments, a wiring harness that will allow me to put in the multi-valve 4.2 into the troop carrier. That would be amazing. But it means finding a troop carrier probably of a lower value, maybe with slightly higher mileage. Again, we'll see. Used troop carriers in South Africa are difficult to find. There are not a lot of them, and those that do come on the market, generally people keep them until they've got 200 plus. I don't mind if it's got 200 plus, but if it's got 200 plus, I have to say, okay, that's fine. We can, oh, and did I mention Terrain Tamer, people that worked with us on the 2019 105 build, I chatted to them and said, would you be interested in doing another one? And they, yes. They got pretty excited about it. Obviously that was very good for them. And it was great for us because their parts work, they're very good quality, and we could basically use their inventory, and we rebuilt the 105 using mostly Terrain Tamer parts, building 105. Again, if we had an older vehicle, I don't mind it being too old, as long as it's in nice condition, it hasn't been abused. Redo the bearings, the wheel bearings and the prop shaft, and do all of that stuff using Terrain Tamer parts. That's another build, another restoration. But if I have not spent too much on the actual base vehicle, I could afford to put in and do an engine transport. Now that is interesting. To me, that's interesting. That's something I've never done before. So if I'm going to go troop carrier, that's the route I'm going to try and go. If I go the 76 wagon, now I've owned a 76 wagon, that's the shorter of the three wheelbases. I like the 70, I don't love it, and I had a 1HZ 76 wagon, and mine was a 2007 model, and I did my first solo crossing of the Kalahari with that vehicle, and I never fell in love with it. And the reason being is because with a 1HZ, it was underpowered. I hated the dash and the steering wheel. I hated that old one, just absolutely hated it, mainly the steering wheel actually. And I didn't love the car, but if I was going to go 76, I would go V8. Now they do sell V8s in South Africa of the 76. And I would maybe fit the Thor, which is the Hercules. They do the Hercules, Alucab Hercules conversion for troop carrier. This is the Alucab Thor, these strange names, which is a similar conversion for the 76 wagon, which really interests me. I've not actually seen one myself, but that really interests me, that particular product. And again, can it, like the troop carrier, be converted something that you can spend time in and out? Yes, you'd have to remove the back seats, but it's got back doors, which means that whole thing about getting cameras in and out, fantastic, I've got a back door. Now that would be an interesting build. That. And to me, that is more, those two vehicles are more interesting than any other, the others. A troop carrier with a bit of age on it, which we can do an engine transplant and do a beautiful interior and whatever, or a 76 wagon where we do the Thor and and we do an interior which is designed around 4 doors. I'm not getting excited about the car. So again, I'm contradicting myself, getting excited about the car and saying it's not about the car. It's about the car while you're building it. It's not so much about the car when you're touring with it. It's a bit about the car. When you look over your shoulder at the campsite and you go, I can't wait to go driving tomorrow in it. I want to thank you again for all of you guys on Patreon for commenting. Really, really good inspirational stuff, and it's helped me get my head around and see what's most important. Thank you for watching, or if you've been listening to the podcast, thank you for listening. Thank you so much for watching. These videos are made possible by contributions from Patreons. Join our Patreon family now.